I'm Paul Liistro, and my brother and I own two skilled nursing facilities in the Hartford area, as well as a retirement community called the Arbors of Hop Brook. We've been in the business, we're second generation in the business, having been in the business for now 35 years. And my folks were in the business for 25 years before that. And so together, first generation and second generation, it's been about 60 years. And I'm here today to talk about the coronavirus and the rescission of limited liability in the industry by Governor Lamont of Connecticut. You know, we have to look at the nature of a limited immunity, and it's really the civil litigation of a tort, and a tort is a wrongful act or an infringement of a right to another person which isn't contractually obligated. And in the case of COVID, there was nothing that we could have done to have prevented it. We knew very little about it, and the thing that surprised us all was on April 4th, the CDC came out with the information that 40% of the carriers of COVID were asymptomatic. That took us totally by surprise. Now, that was April 4th. It peaked here in Connecticut around April 20th. We didn't know that at the time. We knew it was very bad. We can see infections, we can see deaths, a lot of transfers. The census in all the buildings was going down. No one was coming into the buildings. No one was coming into hospitals. But over the balance of April, May, we started feeling and seeing that COVID was leaving. But then the governor in May said that all patients had to be tested. That was really great because in April we didn't have any testing, but in May we did have testing. He made a mistake by not saying all patients and staff should be tested, because as soon as that happened, then we would have caught the asymptomatic carrier. So we were testing patients for about 6 weeks, all through May, all through half of April, before we started testing staff. So as soon as we started testing staff is when we started seeing positive staff members, and it was always a surprise to me. So they would say, my management would tell me, well, so-and-so is positive. And I would say to them, but I was with them yesterday, they were perfectly fine. And they would say, they're perfectly fine now, they're not showing any symptoms at all. And that was mid-June. So we didn't have any COVID amongst patients for July, and then the state asked the industry to do a point prevalence survey, which was a test of all patients all at one time. And it was a very good tactic. They would say, do it this week, and we'd get it all done that week. Within 2 or 3 days, the entire state would have been surveyed, and we'd be able to find COVID. And we ended up having 15 patients have COVID, where we hadn't seen any COVID for about 6 or 8 weeks. The limited liability protection allowed us to sleep at night, because, as I said, it's a tort is what they're trying to lodge against us, and there was no infringement of right. Now, someone will say, well, you didn't keep the place healthy enough, you didn't have good infection control procedures. But in both of my buildings, we have not had an infection control deficiency in 3 years. One building didn't have COVID until November 8th, and on November 8th, by the 15th, 65% of the patients were COVID positive and 25% of the staff. And we had a miserable end of November into December, and we didn't come out of it until early January. So it's very demoralizing because we had done as much as we possibly could. But what we found was that the asymptomatic carrier was spreading it amongst us. So it was something that was impossible to defend against, no matter how offensive you were or aggressive you were with infection control. So for the governor to repeal our limited liability presumes that we have some sense of control now. And the reality is we don't. Because what we have now found out is that there are now 3 variants out there. We're seeing one from the UK, B117. We're seeing one from South Africa, B1351. And we're seeing one from Brazil, P12. And we don't know anything about them other than they are more contagious. For the moment, we think that they're not more lethal, nor are the symptoms more severe. But the transmissibility, the ability to pass it more freely, is a concern we have. the community immunity, if you will be going down. The virus will be coming in, the new variants will be coming in, and more people will be getting infected at a time when we're not going to have immunity. And so clearly someone, maybe groups of people out there, will take advantage of the fact that we do not have immunity and sue us. And there's no way that we could protect ourselves. There's no training for COVID. I mean, there's use of and training for donning and doffing PPE, for how often you have to do it, depending on the wing you're on, whether it's the observation wing or whether you happen to be in a positive wing, if there's still positive wings in your building. But there's just no opportunity to fight COVID off the way we can fight the flu off. So it's been very, very distressing that the governor, despite his wisdom, insight, and foresight a year ago, has now decided that it's no longer applicable at a time when we've got totally different circumstances. You know, the one opportunity I could see the governor changing his mind on is if we see the variants, if we see different variants. Right now there's only 3. We think we're only seeing 1 or 2, the UK variant and the South Africa variant, more so than the Brazilian variant. But if we start to see variant 4, variant 5, if you start to see more transmissibility, more contagion, more ease of contagion, I think he might reconsider. The question is, what will create that? So we'll see it happen in staff, we'll see it happen in the community. The community, what we've determined is that certainly the prevalence in the community makes a big difference as to whether we see it in the nursing homes. We need herd immunity, but there's enough anti-vaxxers out there that it's going to be very difficult to get to the country, never mind nursing home, to get to the 75% or 80% level that we need. And until we get there, you can't let your guard down. And maybe the governor will say, it's not the nursing home's fault. The virus is morphing, it's evolving, it does what viruses do. The flu virus does this all the time. So it's possible, but it'll probably go through stages of rampant contagion in the society before he says, you know what, I'm going to give them immunity again, because again, it's not their fault. They're doing the best they can. We're fighting nature here. It's not the fault of the nursing home.